The archive chamber of Nexus Prime hummed with the collective knowledge of 10,000 civilizations. Crystalline data cores stretched endlessly upward, each one containing the complete histories of entire species. Ambassador Kira walked between the towering pillars, her boots echoing against the polished floor, searching for something that should have been there but wasn't. "System, locate records for Sol 3 designation," she commanded, her voice tight with growing concern. The mechanical response chilled her to the bone. "No records found for Sol 3 designation. Query parameters may be invalid." Kira's hands trembled as she pulled up her personal datapad, cross-referencing coordinates that had been burned into her memory since childhood. The yellow star, the third planet, the blue marble that had given birth to humanity, all of it should have been cataloged here. The Galactic Archive was supposed to contain everything. "System, search for species designation, human, no records found." The words hit her like a physical blow. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 3 centuries ago, had contributed to countless peacekeeping missions, had shared their art, their music, their stories with dozens of worlds. How could there be no records? She tried again, her voice growing desperate. "Search for Earth, Terra, homeworld of bipedal mammals. Carbon-based, located in outer spiral arm. No matching entries found." The silence that followed was deafening. Kira sank onto a nearby bench, her mind racing through possibilities. A clerical error, a system malfunction. Anything but the truth that was slowly crystallizing in her chest like ice. They had been erased, not just forgotten, actively removed from the galaxy's memory. Every treaty humanity had signed, every alliance they had forged, every life they had saved or lost in service to the greater good had been systematically deleted from existence. As far as the galaxy was concerned, humans had never existed. But why? The answer came from behind her, a voice she recognized with a mixture of relief and dread. "Because we made them uncomfortable." Kira turned to see Captain Rex emerge from the shadows between the data cores. His weathered face bore new lines of exhaustion, and his usually pristine uniform was torn and stained. He looked like a man who had been running for days. "Rex, thank the stars you're alive. I thought I was the only one who remembered." "There are more of us," he interrupted, moving closer and lowering his voice. "Scattered across the rim worlds, trying to piece together what happened. But Kira, it's worse than we thought. This wasn't just bureaucratic housekeeping. This was deliberate, surgical. Someone wanted humanity erased so completely that even the idea of us would be forgotten." The weight of his words settled over her like a shroud. Who could do something like this? The archive is supposed to be immutable, protected by quantum encryption that even the Council itself can't breach. Rex's expression darkened. Someone with access to the Architect's Codex, someone who helped build this system from the ground up. He paused, letting the implications sink in. One of the Founding Five. The Founding Five, the first civilizations. To establish the Galactic Council, the elder species who had guided younger races for millennia. The thought that one of them would orchestrate such a betrayal was almost incomprehensible. "We need proof," Kira whispered. "We need more than proof. We need to understand why they feared us enough to try erasing our entire species from history." Rex's eyes blazed with determination that she remembered from their academy days. "And then we need to make sure the galaxy remembers us whether they want to or not. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Outside the archive, the binary suns of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the diplomatic corridor. In the distance, representatives from dozens of worlds went about their daily business, blissfully unaware that an entire civilization had been surgically removed from their reality. But in the depths of the archive, two humans stood against an impossible conspiracy, carrying the weight of their species' memory on their shoulders. They were alone in a galaxy that had forgotten them. But they were not defeated. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds, and this would be no different. The galaxy had tried to erase them from history. Now it was time to rewrite it. The abandoned mining station on Vega's third moon had been derelict for over 2 centuries, its corridors dark and airless. It was perfect for their purposes. Kira followed Rex through the makeshift airlock, her breath misting in the cold air as emergency lighting flickered to life around them. "Welcome to the memory bank," Rex said, gesturing to the main chamber. "What?" Kira saw took her breath away. The cavern had been converted into a sprawling nerve center, with salvaged computers and quantum drives arranged in careful networks. Holographic displays showed star charts, historical timelines, and faces, so many human faces that her heart ached to see them. "How many?" she whispered. 47 confirmed survivors," came a voice from across the room. A woman approached, her silver hair pulled back in a military knot that Kira recognized instantly. "General Maya," Kira breathed, rushing forward to embrace the woman who had once commanded the human forces in the Corvan War. "We thought you were dead. The reports said your transport was lost near the Helix Nebula." Maya's smile was grim. "That's what they wanted everyone to think. We barely escaped before the memory wipe hit our sector. Been gathering our people ever since, trying to piece together what happened and why." Rex activated a central display showing a timeline that made Kira's stomach drop. The erasure hadn't been instantaneous. It had been methodical, taking place over the course of 18 months. Human colonies had been quarantined under false pretenses, their populations relocated to temporary facilities that turned out to be memory modification centers. Trade agreements had been quietly canceled, citing clerical errors. Military records had been sealed behind increasingly complex security protocols until they simply vanished. "They were thorough," Maya continued, "but they made one mistake. They assumed human stubbornness was just a behavioral quirk, not a survival trait." Kira studied the faces on the displays: scientists, soldiers, artists, engineers. All of them people who had somehow slipped through the cracks of the erasure protocol. "How did we survive the memory modification?" "That's where it gets interesting," Rex said, pulling up another display. This one showed brain scan comparisons between humans and other galactic species. "Remember how we always joked about human intuition? About our ability to sense things that didn't add up? Turns out it's not just intuition, it's quantum consciousness." The technical explanation that followed made Kira's head spin, but the core concept was elegantly simple. Human brains operated on a slightly different quantum frequency than other known species, making them naturally resistant to certain forms of memory manipulation. Not immune, several dozen humans had been successfully modified, but resistant enough that some retained fragments of their true memories. "The Founding Five didn't know about our quantum variants when they designed the erasure protocol," Maya explained. "By the time they realized their mistake, we had already gone underground." The irony wasn't lost on Kira. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their unpredictability, their refusal to fit neatly into established patterns. Now that very trait was keeping their species from being completely forgotten. "So what's the plan?" Kira asked. Maya and Rex exchanged a look that spoke of long nights and difficult decisions. "We're going to do what humans do best," Maya said. "We're going to be unreasonable." She activated a new display showing the locations of hidden human settlements throughout the galaxy. Most were on rim worlds, forgotten backwater planets that the major powers ignored. But there were more than Kira had dared hope. Nearly 200,000 humans scattered across 40 systems, all of them living under false identities or in complete isolation. "Phase 1 is already underway," Rex explained. "We're establishing secure communication networks between all human settlements. Phase 2 involves gathering evidence of our erasure and the conspiracy behind it. But Phase 3... He paused, looking directly at Kira. Phase 3 is where we need you. Me? I'm just a junior ambassador. Was a junior ambassador. I'm not even sure what I am anymore. You're the human who has the most recent access to the Galactic Archive, Maya said. And more importantly, you're the one who noticed the erasure first. That makes you our best chance at proving what was taken from us. Kira felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Around the chamber, other survivors watched her with expressions of hope and determination. These people had lost everything, their homes, their histories, their very identities, but they hadn't given up. They were counting on her to help them reclaim what had been stolen. What exactly are you asking me to do? Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. We're asking you to break into the most secure facility in the galaxy, steal back our history, and broadcast it to every civilized world simultaneously. She paused. Think. You're up for it? For the first time since discovering the erasure, Kira felt a familiar warmth spreading through her chest. It was the same feeling she'd had as a child when her grandmother told stories of human explorers venturing into the unknown, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply because they refused to accept that something was impossible. When do we start? The architect's sanctum existed in a space between dimensions, accessible only through quantum tunneling technology that hurt to think about too deeply. Kira materialized inside a maintenance shaft, her modified suit barely protecting her from the dimensional flux that made her teeth ache and her vision blur. The infiltration had taken weeks of preparation and more luck than she cared to admit. The sanctum itself defied description, vast chambers that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions, filled with crystalline matrices that pulsed with the accumulated knowledge of civilizations. This was where the Galactic Archive's core systems resided, where the fundamental codes that governed information storage and retrieval were maintained. And somewhere in this impossible space was the truth about humanity's erasure. Kira activated her scanner, following quantum signatures that Rex's technical team had identified as potential access points to the deleted data. The device led her through corridors that shifted and changed when she wasn't looking directly at them, past towering constructs that hummed with barely contained energy. Then she found it. The vault of echoes was hidden behind layers of encryption, so complex that it would have taken a normal computer centuries to crack. But Kira wasn't using normal computers. She was using human intuition combined with quantum resonance technology that her species had unknowingly developed through centuries of adaptation. The vault opened like a flower made of light, revealing something that made her heart stop. It wasn't just human records that had been erased. It was evidence of dozens of other species, other civilizations that had been systematically removed from galactic memory over the past millennium. Races that had asked too many questions, pushed too hard for reform, or simply grown powerful enough to threaten the established order. Humanity wasn't the first to be erased. They were just the latest. But as Kira delved deeper into the recovered data, she discovered something even more shocking. The erasures weren't random acts of political convenience. They were part of a carefully orchestrated plan that stretched back to the founding of the Galactic Council itself. The Founding Five weren't the galaxy's benevolent guides. They were its secret rulers, maintaining power by eliminating any species that might challenge their authority. They had built the entire galactic civilization as a carefully controlled ecosystem, with themselves at the apex and every other race serving specific functions. Humans had been erased because they were unpredictable, because they formed alliances based on principles rather than convenience, because they had a disturbing tendency to inspire other species to question authority and think independently. In short, humans were erased because they were catalysts for change in a system designed to never change. Kira's hands shook as she downloaded the evidence. Terabytes of data that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of its own history. But as she prepared to leave, she discovered one final secret that made her blood run cold. The next erasure was already planned. The target was the Kalari, a peaceful aquatic species, known for their philosophical insights and growing influence in the Council's Ethics Committee. Their elimination was scheduled to begin in just 3 days, using the exact same protocols that had been used against humanity. Kira closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible decisions. She could take the evidence she had gathered and expose the conspiracy, but it would take time to verify and disseminate the information. Time that the Kalari didn't have, or she could try to warn them directly, knowing that doing so would likely expose the human resistance and doom any chance of broader revelation. The choice was taken from her when alarms began sounding throughout the sanctum. Her infiltration had been detected, and security protocols were activating. Dimensional barriers slammed down around her position, and she could hear the approaching footsteps of Sanctum Guardians. With seconds to spare, she activated her emergency beacon and sent a single message to Maya and Rex. "They're not the first, won't be the last. Package contains everything. Stop the Kalari operation at all costs." Then the Guardians reached her, and everything went dark. When Kira awakened, she was in a cell that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, a prison designed to hold beings that could manipulate reality itself. Across from her, sitting in meditation pose with water streaming continuously over his blue-scaled form, was someone she had never expected to see. "Counselor Deep Tide of the Kalari Assembly," she said, recognizing the being from diplomatic briefings. "What are you doing here?" The aquatic being's large eyes fixed on her with an intelligence that was both ancient and deeply sad. "The same thing you are, I suspect, Ambassador Kira of the Human Federation. Trying to save my people from a fate that has already claimed yours." The revelation hit her like a physical blow. "You remember us. We remember everything, young human. The question is, are you prepared to help us ensure that no one else is forgotten?" Outside their impossible prison, the machinery of galactic civilization continued its ordered function, unaware that its foundational myths were crumbling. But in a cell between dimensions, 2 representatives of doomed species began planning an act of rebellion that would either save the galaxy or destroy it completely. The choice, as always with humans, would come down to doing what was right rather than what was safe. The escape from the Sanctum's dimensional prison required something the Founding Five had never encountered before: interspecies cooperation, based on genuine trust rather than political necessity. Deep Tide's mastery of quantum fluid dynamics, combined with Kira's intuitive understanding of dimensional mechanics, created possibilities that neither species could achieve alone. They materialized in the abandoned sections of Nexus Prime's lower levels, where the city's original infrastructure lay forgotten beneath centuries of expansion. Deep Tide's form shifted as they moved from water-filled passages to air-filled chambers, his species' natural adaptability allowing him to function in environments that would kill most aquatic beings. "Your people are remarkable," he observed, watching Kira navigate the complex tunnel systems with casual confidence. "Most species would be paralyzed by uncertainty in an environment this chaotic." "Chaos is where humans do our best work," Kira replied, checking her scanner for signs of pursuit. "Though I'm starting to think that's exactly why they wanted us gone." They reached the surface through a maintenance shaft that emerged in the VI Diplomatic Quarters Central Plaza. The scene that greeted them was one of barely controlled panic. Council security forces were everywhere, their search pattern suggesting they were looking for something specific, or someone. "The Kalari erasure," Deep Tide said, his voice heavy with resignation. "It has begun, hasn't it?" Kira activated her personal communicator, scanning through encrypted channels until she found what she was looking for. Rex's voice came through in short, tense bursts. Extraction teams in position. Can't hold them much longer. Need immediate. Rex, this is Kira. I'm alive and I have company. What's the situation? The relief in his voice was palpable. Kira, thank the void you're safe. We intercepted the Kalari operation, but it's bigger than we thought. They're not just erasing Deep Tide's people. They're using them as a test case for a new protocol. Something called the final solution. Deep Tide's form rippled with barely contained emotion. They mean to erase all non-founding species, don't they? Return the galaxy to their direct control. That's what the intelligence suggests, Rex confirmed. Maya's coordinating a rescue operation for the Kalari colonies, but we need proof of the broader conspiracy. Please tell me you found something in the sanctum. Kira patted the quantum storage device secured to her belt. I found everything. Records of 23 erased civilizations, complete documentation of the control protocols, and evidence that the Founding Five have been manipulating galactic development for over a millennium. Then we need to move fast. There's something else. We're not the only ones who figured this out. Word is spreading through the underground networks. Dozens of species are starting to ask questions about missing historical records. Disappeared colonies, unexplained gaps in their own cultural memories. The implications hit Kira like a thunderbolt. A galactic awakening. If enough species realize what's been happening, civil war, Deep Tide finished grimly. The Founding Five will not surrender their power willingly. They will claim the erasures were necessary for galactic stability, that the erased species were threats to the greater good. Kira looked around the plaza, watching representatives from dozens of worlds going about their daily business, unaware that their entire civilization was built on a foundation of lies and systematic genocide. The weight of what they were about to unleash settled on her shoulders. There's another way, she said slowly. We don't just expose the conspiracy, we offer an alternative. Rex's voice crackled through the communicator. What do you mean? The Founding Five maintain power by controlling information and eliminating threats. But what if we turned that around? What if we created a new kind of galactic government based on transparency and genuine cooperation? Deep Tide's large eyes fixed on her with growing understanding. A coalition of the erased and the threatened. Species that have experienced the Founding Five's methods firsthand. Exactly. We're not just fighting against something, we're fighting for something better. The plan that emerged from their discussion was audacious even by human standards. Rather than simply broadcasting the evidence of the conspiracy, they would coordinate a simultaneous revelation across multiple systems, timed to coincide with the rescue of the remaining Kalari colonies. Each erased or threatened species would share their own stories, creating a wave of truth that would be impossible to suppress or discredit. But first, they needed to reach the other human settlements and coordinate with Maya's resistance network. The transport hub is heavily monitored, Kira observed, studying the security patterns through her scanner. Getting off-world won't be easy. Deep Tide's form shifted slightly, taking on a more streamlined configuration. Perhaps not for most beings. But the Kalari have had centuries to study this station's water circulation systems. And humans, I have learned, excel at improvised solutions. The escape route they devised would have been impossible for any other combination of species. Deep Tide used his mastery of fluid dynamics to navigate the station's massive water recycling systems, carrying Kira through pipes and channels that security had never considered as potential escape routes. Her human flexibility and problem-solving instincts allowed them to overcome obstacles that would have stopped most aquatic beings. They emerged in the station's cargo bay, where a Kalari transport waited with engines already warming. At the controls sat another figure that made Kira's heart leap with recognition. Captain Nera of the Kalari Deep Fleet, Deep Tide announced formally. My bond sister and the architect of our people's survival protocols. Captain Nara's greeting. was a complex series of color changes across her scaled hide that somehow conveyed both welcome and urgency. Ambassador Kira, your reputation precedes you. My people owe you a debt that spans generations. We're all in this together now, Kira replied, strapping herself into the co-pilot's seat. Where are we headed? To gather our allies, Nara said as the transport lifted off. The galaxy is about to remember what it means to be free. Behind them, Nexus Prime fell away into the darkness, its lights twinkling like stars against the void. But ahead of them lay something more precious than any star, the promise of a future where no species would ever again face erasure from history. The revolution had begun. The broadcast began simultaneously across 47 systems, carried by a network of quantum relays that the human resistance had spent months establishing. On every inhabited world in the galaxy, screens flickered to life with a message that would reshape civilization itself. Kira's face appeared first, standing in the main chamber of the Vega mining station, surrounded by the rescued records of erased civilizations. Behind her, representatives from dozens of species stood together, humans, Kalari, and others who had survived their own erasures or narrowly escaped planned eliminations. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice carrying across light years to reach beings who had never heard of humanity. My name is Kira, and I represent a species that your leaders tried to erase from existence. We are called humans, and this is our story. But more importantly, this is your story, the truth about the civilization you thought you knew. What followed was the most comprehensive data dump in galactic history. Records of 23 erased civilizations scrolled across screens, their cultures and achievements restored to memory after centuries of imposed forgetting. The evidence of the Founding Five's conspiracy was overwhelming: millennia of systematic elimination, cultural manipulation, and the creation of a false history designed to maintain their power. But the humans didn't stop at revelation. True to form, they offered something more. We propose a new kind of galactic government, Rex announced from his position aboard a Kalari rescue ship that was broadcasting from the edge of Council space. Not rule by the few, but cooperation among equals, not control through erasure, but growth through diversity. We call it the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On world after world, populations rose up demanding answers from their council representatives. Species that had lived with nagging gaps in their historical records suddenly understood why entire periods of their development seemed to be missing. The careful order that the Founding Five had maintained for millennia began to crumble within hours. The Five's response was predictably desperate. Emergency sessions were called, claiming the broadcasts were terrorist propaganda designed to destabilize galactic peace. Military forces were mobilized under the pretext of maintaining order. But their greatest weapon, the ability to control information, had been broken. More importantly, they had underestimated the power of human stubbornness. When applied to protecting others, Maya's tactical brilliance became apparent as the hours passed. The simultaneous rescue operations weren't just about saving the Kalari. They were about demonstrating that the Alliance meant what it said about protecting all species. Human ships appeared throughout the galaxy, working alongside Kalari vessels, and ships from other threatened civilizations to evacuate populations, marked for erasure. The sight of humans risking their lives to save species they had never met resonated across the galaxy in ways that no propaganda could match. But the most powerful moment came when Deep Tide addressed the galaxy from the bridge of his flagship. His words transmitted through quantum channels that reached every world simultaneously. I have lived for 300 years, he said, his form shifting through colors that conveyed deep emotion. I have served on the Council, believed in its mission, trusted in its wisdom. But I have also watched civilizations disappear overnight, explained away as natural decline or voluntary isolation. I thought this was simply the way of the universe, that some species were meant to fade while others endured. His form darkened to deep blue, the Kalari equivalent of profound sadness. I was wrong. What I witnessed was not natural selection, but systematic murder. The erasure of entire peoples because they dared to question, to grow, to change. And I was too blind to see it until it was nearly my people's turn. Then his colors shifted to brilliant gold, the shade of hope and determination. But today, I have seen something that gives me faith in the future. I have seen humans, a species written out of history, risk everything to save strangers. I have seen them choose to stand for principles, even when standing alone. This is what the galaxy needs, not perfect order imposed from above, but imperfect. Beings choosing to do better. The tide turned when the first Council world declared its independence from Founding Five authority, then another. Then dozens more. Species that had been junior partners in the galactic hierarchy suddenly realized they outnumbered their supposed superiors by thousands to one. The final confrontation came not through military action, but through something more fundamentally human, the power of choice, standing before the Emergency Council Assembly. With representatives from hundreds of worlds watching, Kira made the offer that would define the galaxy's future. "We don't want to rule you," she said to the assembled Founding Five. "We don't want revenge for what you've done, though we would be justified in seeking it. We want something simpler and more radical. We want you to be equal partners in building something better." The silence that followed stretched for long moments. Then one of the five, the crystalline being known as the Prime Architect, spoke in tones that rang like breaking glass. "You would trust us? After everything we have done?" Kira's smile was sad but genuine. "Trust has to start somewhere. Humans have a saying, to err is human, to forgive divine. We're not divine, but we're willing to try forgiveness if you're willing to try equality." The vote that followed wasn't unanimous, it never could have been, but it was decisive. The Galactic Council was dissolved, replaced by the Alliance of Free Worlds. The Founding Five were stripped of their special status, but offered seats as equal members in the new government. Most surprising of all, they accepted. Years later, historians would mark this day as the moment when galactic civilization truly began. Not with the dominance of the strong over the weak, but with the choice to stand together as equals despite their differences. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that had been erased from history but refused to stay gone. They had done what they always did when faced with impossible odds. They had found a way to make things better, not just for themselves, but for everyone. The galaxy had tried to forget Earth. Instead, Earth taught the galaxy how to remember itself.